What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
Hey Ballbusters, Bates here with your friend and mine, Ray Mungus. And tonight we ask ourselves, why is Gamora? On episode 24 of Way of Life Live. How you doing over there, Mungus?
I'm awake. I've been pondering that since I saw the movie.
I think everybody has who has seen the movie. It's a question for the ages.
That it is, and I've also been practicing my invisibility. I'm not quite as good as Drax, but getting there.
Well, just be happy you don't have to fight a blanket of death.
Who would have thought that Dave Bautista is comic gold? Like, honestly, I mean, he was funny in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but like, he just keeps nailing it. I don't know if it's the dialogue or it's just his like completely serious deadpan delivery.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is either. I guess it's just like I think they went into the movies writing his character and not expecting a whole lot, and they kind of ran with that.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be one of their biggest strengths with him, and like him transitioning into film. You know, like you sort of thought, oh, great, a wrestler is going to act. We all know how that goes, you know. And I'd seen him in The Man with the Iron Fist, and he's pretty much what you expect in that movie. You know, he's a big brute, and he goes around kicking ass. You know, so it's like, okay, you get the general gist of what Drax is going to be. Then you see Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're just like, holy fuck, this guy has range, and he's hilarious.
Yeah, what it was though, going into that, the first one is we didn't know what Drax we were gonna get. Now, obviously from the previews and from what we saw of his design, he was current Drax, who in the comics is not really an idiot. He's actually a pretty smart character, as opposed to Drax from the 1990s, who is in the comic world just simply called Dumb Drax, because he was fucking dumb.
I think they found a good balance in between. I wouldn't call the movie Drax dumb, but the fact that he is like still learning and like trying to understand his like the humans' ways and everything like that, like that like I don't know, like it just adds the perfect level of like making him alien to us, you know?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It just, again, just going into the movies, I was just never really expecting a whole lot from the character, because the character was never overly important, aside from a couple of key moments back in the 90s. And then in like his more current comic runs, he had moments here and there, but he was never a overly important character. But I'm glad that they found a practical use for him in the universe at hand.
Yeah, definitely. And not only that, but it also inspires modern day comic writers to be like, okay, we finally found our footing for this guy. This is what works. This is the best way to approach this character. And on top of that, they're going to be adding a little more humor to the comics, and that's exactly what just blends very, very well with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep. And just a quick warning again to everybody: we are going to be discussing spoilers of the movie tonight. So if you have not seen the movie, I would probably turn off the stream now, or it will be ruined for you.
Yeah, that's the first time we're like trying to chase viewers away. Like normally we're like, come on in, we've got candy and rides and all this stuff, like a demented Pennywise.
Candy and balloons and all kinds of rides.
Exactly. So like we always have that sort of approach. But Avengers: Infinity War, like you said in your review, it's an event film. And despite us talking about or leading into this whole thing with Guardians of the Galaxy talk, we're talking about the Avengers tonight, and this movie is such a spectacle that you need to go into it fresh. And I think that's the best advice you could give somebody. Don't watch the trailers. Don't read reviews, or don't read like borderline spoiler headlines. Go into this movie fresh and really enjoy it.
Yeah. And we did start the episode talking about the Guardians, and I was going to kind of segue into our first, I guess, spoiler of the night. And I was going to say, it's funny how we're talking about Drax, and he doesn't even make it through the movie.
Rip.
In fact, the only Guardian who lives at the end of the movie is my man Rocket.
That's crazy. Like, oh man, I can't believe we're already getting into deaths.
Well, I don't know if you could actually call what happened to everybody, aside from Gamora and Loki and Heimdall. I don't know if you could really call what happened to them deaths. It's more of just like erased
Yeah.
from existence for the moment. It's not really death. It's sort of on its own level.
Yeah, exactly, and that's been fun to me, like watching other people respond to what happened in the movie, and generally have an idea of, like where things are going, or how they're reacting to it. Some people are like snarky, kind of like us. We're like, oh, duh, time stone, they're gonna fix everything. And then there's people that are like, oh, this is problematic. How the fuck is this story gonna continue? How is the entire universe gonna continue beyond that?
Well, it's not even just the time stone. It's the fact that when when you possess the gauntlet with all 6 stones, it's not even a matter of utilizing one stone. You're able to combine all the stones to basically do anything you want. So it's not even a matter of turning back time. It's just a matter of just undoing what was done.
Just snapping your finger, essentially.
Exactly, again. Which, for those who have not read the comic, the ending of Infinity War actually happens at the very beginning of the Infinity Gauntlet comic arc.
Oh, yeah. It happens, yeah. I remember reading that a few years ago when you recommended.
But my favorite thing about the entire movie is, and we're going to be bouncing around all places over the movie tonight, but my favorite part about the movie was the end scene. Not the after credit scene, but the very end scene. The last 10 seconds of the movie, where Thanos, it's just like he comes back after his own personal war. He's come back victorious, and he's able to sit down and finally relax. And you get a quick shot, sort of almost like an over-the-shoulder shot, and you see that he's in like this luscious green farmland almost, and you can actually see, it's really funny, you can actually see like a scarecrow on like the right side of the screen over his shoulder. And why that's my favorite scene is that it's the exact end scene. It's the very last 3 panels of the Infinity Gauntlet issue 6 comic, which is the last issue in that arc. But it's the last 3 panels. They mimicked that in the movie to a T, to the scarecrow. Just fucking.
Yeah, that scene gave me chills, pretty much. Like, honestly, that's, out of the entire movie, you pretty much could set your emotions to a specific scene very well. You know when to feel sad, you know when to laugh, etc. That scene was the one scene in the movie that I really didn't know how to react.
You don't know what to do.
Exactly. Like, I was kind of overwhelmed because of what just transpired, but at the same time, I had a bit of relief because he finally got what he wanted. You know what I mean? Like, what was the quote that he said in the movie where he was like, he wants to look upon the sunset or sunrise with a what the hell was it? Grateful universe or something like that. And he achieved that, and like there's this sense of calm despite everything that happened in the movie, that you're just like, like he earned this one. And then you go back and you're horrified for even saying that
Yeah, you don't know whether. You see, this is why they did such a great job at making him probably one of the best villains we're ever gonna get in a fictional movie. You know, there's great villains from history in all kinds of non-fictional movies. But when it comes to fictional movies, we rarely get these amazing villains anymore.
No, they're very one-dimensional usually. They're just like bad guys doing bad guy shit for the sake of being a bad guy.
And what was really great about his character throughout the entire movie, especially when he was explaining exactly what he wanted to do, how he wanted to, you know, save planets by wiping out half the universe. And he goes into his a little bit of backstory and exactly what happened to him on Titan. There was too many people, and the civilization began to crumble and fail. And you're listening to how he's talking about it, and all I'm thinking in my head is it was a scene from one of the Star Wars movies, prequel. I think it was Episode 3, and Emperor Palpatine is, I believe he's talking to Anakin at one point, after he turns Anakin, and he says something that still to this day just makes me wonder, like, what the fuck? And he talks about finally bringing peace to the galaxy. And it's at that point where you start to wonder, well, maybe the Sith aren't all that bad? You know, and that's kind of how Thanos was coming off when he was explaining everything. And even after he finishes, he wins. He does what he set out to do. And you're like, well, is what he did really all that bad?
Yeah, that's the marking of a good villain. Just the fact that when they believe what they're doing is right, you know, you've gotten written right. You got it written very well.
No, when you have the audience conflicted about if what they did was right.
That's what. Obviously, some villains aren't even written that way where they believe their own shit, but when they convince you, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling to have, especially knowing that, all right, well, this person just killed trillions of people, but maybe it was a good thing.
Yeah, it was that end scene. It's just, I don't even know. It's all these emotions all at once hitting me, and I'm just like, Jesus, like, I don't even know how to process this. I mean, on a base level, you could be like, okay, the bad guy won and leave it at that. But when you're sitting there trying to figure out whether to congratulate or condemn him, you know, you're just like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a feeling you're not typically used to.
No, definitely not. It was very unique. Something that I don't even think I've ever experienced before at the tail end of the movie. You know, like, I'm glad the credits, they didn't have a mid-credit scene because I kind of felt, you know, that I needed that 10 minutes or so to like contemplate. I
I,
needed a little quiet contemplation.
yeah, I needed to, make sure my pantalones were not soiled, and
Exactly.
I needed to empty out what was left of my popcorn and do a little hyperventilating.
Exactly.
So
So I'm seeing that we have some more viewers right now, so I just want to like echo the fact that we are doing a review slash discussion on Avengers Infinity War, and this will contain spoilers. So if you didn't see the movie and care about it being spoiled, stop watching now. Check it out a little bit later.
yes, pretty much. Um, what did you think of like the opening? Basically, starting right where the like last end credit scene of Thor Ragnarok. Just picking up right at that scene.
I thought it was interesting because you just kind of had that situation where you left on a very good note in Thor, and here we are with the worst things like happening. Like it was just, first off, when the fun, often heroic sounding Marvel intro happens, you know, it always gets you pumped up for the movie.
Yeah, we
But
didn't get that.
Jesus, no, we got the logo, but it was straight up doom and gloom right from the very first Marvel frame.
Yeah, we didn't get
Not
any
the
fanfare.
Yeah, not the movie frame, but the actual logo. It was like very foreboding music, just completely um it was just echoing what was about to happen. And when we opened up and we're seeing all this death and destruction, the Black Order basically wreaked havoc on everything, you knew you were in for a ride, and it wasn't going to be a pleasant one.
Yeah, and from what I heard, the person doing the voiceover for that distress call was apparently the director of Thor.
Oh, Taika?
No, not Ragnarok, the first Thor.
Oh, okay, all right. I don't even know who that is. I have to look.
So I thought that was kind of a cool little Easter egg of sorts.
Yeah, definitely. It's fun when they bring people in that kind of launched everything. These people, these directors, writers, everything of all the previous films, they are responsible for this foundation that made this film such a success. So, for them to pass the baton onto them or throw back to them, good on them.
So in the first 10 minutes of this movie, not even, it's like the first 7 minutes, honestly, we see most of the Asgardians wiped out. Thor just completely destroyed, and the Hulk just gets bitched. And then, if that's not bad enough, watching the Hulk just get absolutely pummeled was very upsetting.
Without breaking a sweat, mind you. It was complete hopelessness. And Thor being dragged by his head, like Thanos just straight up has his head in his hands, just dragging him along.
Yeah, it was about to pop his head like a pimple, man. It was definitely a very upsetting way to start a movie.
It's messed up? The fact that you've seen the trailers, we know that Thor at one point meets the Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie. So I was still I was still trying to figure out where the movie was going to start from. Those movies that kind of show the end, the aftermath, and then they go back 2 weeks later or 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought it was a situation like that because I was basically fearing that Thor wasn't making it out of the situation alive. You know what I mean? I knew he was in the movie later on, but I had no idea whether or not he was going to die here or what.
I knew that had to take place pretty early in the movie. Simply because they were only all the clips they were showing were of Thanos with the power and the space gem. So he had to have gotten those early in the movie and then had them throughout the entire movie. And obviously he gets the space stone from Loki. So I was just kind of putting, two and two together, and it was just like, all right, Thor's obviously going to make it through this because he also gets his new weapon. He gets Stormbreaker, which was a great subplot.
I completely agree.
Loved that subplot. Loved his chemistry with Rocket, Rocket the Rabbit.
Exactly.
And then the surprise cameo. I mean, we knew he was in the movie. We just weren't sure who he was playing. But the pretty awesome surprise cameo from Peter Dinklage as Eitri.
He's perfect in everything, and this movie, is no different.
It's funny. I thought it was hilarious that they made the obviously, dwarf actor. Obviously, he's a little actor, but he might only be 3.5 feet tall, but he's got more acting chops than any actor I've seen in the last 30 years. But I thought it was so clever that they turned the literally smallest actor in the movie into the biggest character next to Hulk.
Exactly. That was awesome. There was a lot of diversion before. Everybody was trying to figure out what he was going to be playing. to the most recent rumors where they said that he was actually going to voice one of the Black Order, and I was severely let down when I heard that he was just going to voice a character, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like I like the fact that he's in a Marvel movie, but I didn't want that. You know what I mean? And the earliest rumors I think was Pip the Troll, right?
Yeah, it's the only one that makes sense.
Yeah, and, then they threw a curveball at us and gave us this.
But I did hear a couple rumors. I didn't think it was gonna happen. Um, that he was gonna be playing Eitri. I just didn't see it happening. I did think he was gonna be playing Pip. Pip made the most sense to me. Um, but yeah, no. Alas, we got Eitri, which makes me
Yeah.
wonder if we're ever gonna get Pip the Troll in the MCU. I mean, I would like it. He's a funky little character, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm very satisfied with the role he ended up playing, and I just yeah, I didn't see that coming. Like you said, him being one of the biggest characters was something else.
So within the first 10 minutes of the movie, we have Thor defeated, Hulk defeated, Heimdall killed, Loki killed. We think for real this time.
If I were to bet, I think Loki's definitely dead, and so is Heimdall.
Oh yeah, Heimdall's definitely dead,
Like,
and all the people who were so convinced that Heimdall was the Soul Stone were wrong. He is not.
I'm so glad that the whole Soul Stone wasn't what people were speculating. I've heard everything from Heimdall to Tony Stark, and I'm just like, that is so stupid. And then throughout the movie, I was like, is Gamora the Time Stone or Soul Stone rather? And that turned out not to be the case exactly.
Well, no. I gotta say, nearly everything I had theorized in my theory video was wrong. Aside from my assurance that the Soul Stone was not on Earth in Wakanda. That I was right about, at least. But everything else, 100% wrong.
At least you nailed the one, right?
Yeah, I got one. Not that that was a big deal, but would have liked to have been right about something.
I hear you on that.
Fuckers.
Exactly. Hey man, half the fun of leading up to these movies is trying to figure them out, and I mean that's how you could tell this is our like lifeblood and stuff like that, and how we were raised with it all, and just the fact that we could have so much conversation and discussion leading up to this film and be completely wrong is it's a test of what the comics really did growing up, or while we were growing up.
Yeah, indeed. I will be putting together a new theory video for. I'm not gonna dive into exactly what I think is going to happen in Avengers 4, but I do have a incredibly crazy scene that I think might happen. I'm not gonna go into details here. I'm gonna wait till I get into the video, but I was thinking about one of the characters who survives in Infinity War and how they could sort of redeem themselves moving forward. And then it just like all of this stuff started clicking. It's like, oh well, this could happen, and could kind of pay homage to that happening in the comics, and it just spiraled out of control. And this scene that I have in my head, people are gonna be like, "The fuck was I smoking?" But I swear to God, I think it could happen. So something to look forward to.
Setting yourself up for some more disappointment.
Oh yeah, 100%. Never gonna happen, but
No,
it could.
maybe. Probably not.
So, first 10 minutes, we get 2 deaths, 2 defeats. Hulk gets sent back to Earth through Heimdall. He summons up the very last bit of dark energy he can to summon the Rainbow Bridge and teleport him to Earth. And Thor gets, you know, flung outside the ship, and pretty sad way to open the movie.
Didn't feel good.
So Hulk, Bruce Banner, basically plays the same role as Silver Surfer did in the comics. Silver Surfer crashed through Doctor Strange's sanctum in the comics the same way Bruce does in the movie. Now, there are a couple differences there, but I like the way they worked it in. I thought it worked very well, and it really didn't take any time from when Hulk gets to Earth, which is almost immediately, to the movie just continuously picking up again. I mean, there are no lulls in this movie. There's a couple of spots where there's a bit of exposition, but they don't last any more than a few minutes before the next bit of insanity happens.
And don't worry yourself over exposition either. There's so much shown on the screen that it's a nice little break to hear everybody recap, you know, what's happening or who this person is or what they're capable of.
Yeah, and you get to a point where you're welcoming these lulls in the movie, because this movie kind of takes you on a feels roller coaster. I don't know how else to explain it. If you've been a fan of this universe and these characters since the beginning, you're gonna get hit with so many emotions. It's gonna hurt, like physically.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, not just that, but everything that happens in the movie, it happens at a rapid fire rate. You know, they I guess the best way to describe it is it's just relentless. It you know just keeps going from scene to scene to scene, and it does not let up.
No, and I guess in this type of movie, you don't want it to let up. I mean, at this point, we've met all these characters. We've grown with all these characters. We know all these characters. So there's no time needed to sit down and explore any of them. Though we do we do get a lot more backstory and emotion with Gamora, and to a lesser degree Nebula, but mainly Gamora, and it's to serve a massive purpose in the grand scheme of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing to me is how much, I guess, development they were able to fit into this movie on top of all the craziness happening. You know, like Spider-Man grows significantly throughout the movie, and it's probably one of the most heartfelt moments in the movie when he disappears from existence. And then you find out a ton about Thanos. Like we've basically just seen Thanos kind of like hang around in the background and give orders and stuff like that up to this point. So it was a massive, I guess, undertaking to be able to make him as conflicted, as sympathetic, and as evil as he actually is in this movie. And the fact that they were able to pull that off within the confines of this film is, you know, it's a remarkable feat.
Yeah, they put a lot of love into the script, and especially into Thanos. But before we dive into Thanos any more, I want to give Ebony Maw his just desserts here. That was one hell of a villain.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the other people weren't as strong, I guess. But he really surprised.
Yeah, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, and God, what the fuck is the last guy's name? Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, and I can't believe I'm blanking. I just had his name in my head.
I'm looking.
Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight.
Cole Obsidian.
Oh, Call Obsidian. That's right. Call Obsidian. I think they changed that name. I think Call Obsidian's original name was Black Dwarf in the comics.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, honestly. I'm not too familiar with the Black Order beyond the movies.
But they were very, very blah characters. I mean, they really didn't have many lines. They didn't have they didn't have much dialogue. And
Proxima Midnight, I think, was probably the second best of them. They had the great moment in Wakanda. You know, that whole standoff with some of the female characters in Wakanda and Black Widow and everything. So I thought that was pretty interesting. She had a good vibe to me. You know how everything was presented. But Ebony Maw, without a doubt, takes the cake.
yeah, he was just like, man, we just needed so much more of him. And it wasn't even that he was just. This character was like ridiculously powerful, and who showed just like no effort in just dismantling anybody and anything around him. That's how strong
definitely.
this guy was.
Yeah, he was quite a feat. Like you had that moment where the people are being thrown around with him just like kind of moving his hand, you know, like just slightly moving his hand, and some of the Earth's mightiest heroes are being flung around into walls and being destroyed, basically, you know, completely defeated and helpless.
Yeah, no, we definitely needed more of him. He was a force to be reckoned with, and a wonderful addition that made this movie even better than it was already going to be. So whoever wrote him, you know, and they showed this character a lot of extra love, and it made a big difference in the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, reading what I've read to begin with, I pretty much expected them to be Thanos' goons. You know, like they were going to be the people that hit Earth and hit various places and tried to, you know, obtain what Thanos was looking for, and that turned out to be exactly true. But the fact that they put love into Ebony Maw a little, and to some degree, kind of exceeded my expectations. So I was totally okay with the Black Order. Some people are complaining that they were just, you know, they were just thugs basically, but ultimately they pretty much did more than I expected them to.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, they're lackeys of Thanos, so you really couldn't have gone into it expecting that much. I mean, especially if anybody has read the Infinity comic arc from a couple years ago. That's when the Black Order was actually introduced. These aren't characters that have a long history and legacy in the Marvel comic universe. They're less than 10 years old, all these characters, as far as I know. I've never heard of them before I read the Infinity arc. And in that comic arc, they weren't anything too special. Very similar to what they were in the movie. They were sent to do a job, and well, honestly, most of them actually do their job, except for the big one. I don't know who that is. It might be Cull Obsidian, who gets sent to Wakanda in the comics and gets the ever-loving shit beaten out of him by Black Panther. All the others succeeded in the comic, from what I remember, but not him. Wakanda just beat the shit out of him in the comic. Which I will let you borrow if you haven't read it. I have the entire series plus a ton of the tie-ins.
Yeah, I might definitely be interested in that. I read a few of them back in the day, but like this movie fueled me to want to revisit a lot of the issues that I haven't read in anytime soon, or anytime recently rather.
Well, I mean, I have the entire Infinity arc, just Infinity, in actual comics from a few years ago. But I mean, if you want Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and Infinity Crusade, I have those digitally.
Right on, right on. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I need to read some more comic books. I've been slacking on that over the last few years, so I'm in.
Yeah, well, to be honest, a lot of the Marvel comics have not been good the last few years. It's been pretty downhill ever since the Infinity arc ended. Aside from a couple of standout series, but for the most part, it's been pretty bad.
I mean, I haven't had any problems with a lot of the all new. I guess whatever they're doing with the all new. I think all new X-Men. I think they had a Guardians comic series that was pretty decent. I was reading for a while. My problem is the whole monthly thing. I've never been good at keeping up with like show dates or comic releases and things like that. That's why like DVR for me is like a godsend. I need like a DVR of comics.
I just need a comic store that stays open. I mean, all the comic stores I would end up going to end up closing. So
Yeah, I mean it's tough. It doesn't. It's not like the old days. I actually just went to a comic store that's right up the street from me, where I sent you that picture of the Thanos statue.
yeah, I know.
I'm thinking about getting a pull box over there, just like I want this, I want this. I'll pick them up monthly.
I nearly bought that statue at East Coast Comic Con on Sunday, but the asshole selling it was like, "Yeah, that's like 160 plus tax."
Fuck that. You come up here and get it cheaper.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "That's what it costs." I brought up a website and I showed him. I'm like, "Dude, look at that, 135 shipped." He goes, "Yeah, I don't believe that." All right, dude.
All right, buddy. Good luck
So-
selling it.
So I'm like, all right, well, you just talked yourself out of a sale. So I left his booth. I went to another booth, bought about $200 worth of Bowen statues. Then I walked back to his booth, and I held up my back, and I'm like, yeah, I see that money I had. It could have been yours, dude. And that's when I left.
Yeah, you had quite the haul.
Yeah, I literally dropped like $200 on a bunch of just random Bowen statues. Like, and anything Bowen is great. But this one guy just had a really nice selection of Bowen stuff, and I saw one and I'm like, oh, I gotta get that one. Then I saw another one, I'm like, oh, that one's pretty cool. And then it just kept going, and I bought 4, and I was walking away, and then I turned around and I'm like, fuck, that Mephisto statue would be perfect behind my Thanos.
Did he have any more, or did you clear him out?
No, he had a bunch of other ones. The only other one I would have considered is he had a Kraven.
Wow, I'm surprised you didn't get that.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of mad at myself now thinking about it that I did not pick up that Kraven. He's my favorite Spider-Man villain. But yeah, he had a bunch of really weird ones. He had like Grey Gargoyle. He had a couple Inhuman ones like Triton and Maximus and somebody else. Who else did he? He had a bunch of just really random characters.
And you know what? I would welcome that a little bit more, because when Comic Cons and stuff, they always have the same thing from table to table. I mean, you're always looking for that weirdo that brings the most obscure statues, and those are the ones that you want because you never see them.
Well, that's pretty much what I bought aside from Kang. It's like nobody's running around looking for a Tarak statue or a fucking Yellow Jacket statue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's definitely unique. Plus Bowen statues go up in value pretty well, so I think you made out.
Yeah, no, I was very happy. I got them at a pretty good deal. The guy was really nice. I got his card. I'll probably pick up more stuff from him in the future. He was a good dude.
Right on.
Much better than the other asshole who was trying to rip me off. Like, I don't know who that guy was talking to. Like, do you think I'm not gonna check your price?
I mean, every one of those cons, they always try to shoot up their value more than they're actually worth. I mean, granted, it's business; they try to make a little bit of money, but the same token, we have the internet and we're not stupid. So
Yeah, and I mean, I almost dropped a small mint on that signed surfer plaque, but then I'm looking at it and I'm like, and I'm realizing that it's actually not a comic book. It's just some cheap glossy print in a nice frame that was signed, and they just upcharged it massively.
yeah, I mean, I don't mind if it's a glossy print or not. That was a really nice setup, but the price not so much.
Yeah, I nearly impulse bought it as soon as I saw it. Then I'm looking at it and looking at it, and I'm like, nope, nope, gotta walk away from it. And I knew when I walked away from it and left the convention and was driving home, and I did not feel bad about not buying it, that I made the right choice.
Yeah, it's definitely. I could see where the impulse comes from. You know, I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, why didn't you buy that, Jesus?" And no, I totally get it.
But I
Back
digress.
to the
Yeah, I digress. Talking about my weekend escapades over at East Coast Comic Con. Um, who, real quick, I didn't tell you, but I ran into that Jackie girl again with the copper stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. She had a booth there. Um, actually, right across from the Munster cars. So I was hanging out talking with her for a
Very
while.
cool. Yeah, you met a couple people, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I finally met another person I've been following on Twitter for a while, who we got our awesome "What We Do in the Shadows" prints from.
Yeah, those prints are amazing. We have to get the link up and post it on our Twitter.
I was yelling at her because I was looking through her book of originals, and she has a original, and she hasn't made prints of it yet. And I'm yelling at her. I was yelling at her. I'm like, "You need to make prints of these now. I know a couple people who will buy them." She has a she has a Vlad cat. I don't know if you remember the scene in What We Do in the Shadows, where it's after the Paschetti scene where they're chasing the guy around the house, and then he opens the door and he sees the cat, and it's Vlad transformed
I
into the
remember.
cat, and it's got Vlad's face on the cat body. Well, she drew that,
That's amazing.
and it looks so good. It's so fucking funny. And I was like, how do you not have prints of this yet? So that's something we might be able to pick up soon, because she was like, all right, I think maybe I'll have to get prints.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I immediately remembered the scene that you're talking about. That'd be amazing.
All right, so out of all the things that happened in this movie, is there anything you were disappointed in?
I've been like trying to rack my brain for almost the entire time. But honestly, like the movie's great for what it is, and everything makes sense. Every decision that they put forth makes sense to me. I'd say if I had to talk about anything that would be a disappointment, it's that I wanted more of them together. You know, I was worried in the trailers that they were pulling a Game of Thrones where they have all these characters, they're on the prefaces of just being all together and being able to take down the baddie, and then they throw them as far into different directions as possible, and that's exactly what happened in this movie. But I think that was a setup for the payoff we're going to be getting in Avengers 4.
Okay.
So, you know, like you build up 10 years and you're like, it's fucking finally happening. And then Thor is on this quest to get an X. The fucking Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man are off into space. And you're like, okay, they're doing their own thing. And then you got everybody chilling out in Wakanda. You know, they're doing their own thing. And I'm like, when are they going to combine? And the fact is, it's divide and conquer. You know, it was a very smart play what Thanos did by sending the Black Order to get the stones into different areas. And maybe it wasn't Thanos that was the one, the mastermind behind it. It was the fact that the Avengers, the Guardians, and everybody did themselves a great disservice by separating all the stones, because when shit came to, hit the fan, they were spread thin, they were spread all over the place, and together they may have been able to defeat him. But with them having to go off into different areas, they were easily taken down. So again, little disappointed to see everybody on screen together, one massive fucking front against Thanos, but it makes perfect sense for what they're going for.
All right.
How about you?
Probably my biggest disappointment was not seeing Rocket get Bucky's arm. He wanted that arm.
again, again, I think that's a setup for later. I think he will have Bucky's arm.
He even said, "Oh, I'm gonna get that arm." He never got that arm, and that's very upsetting. But Bucky is still alive, right? He survived.
Yeah, I think so.
No, maybe he didn't.
Well, to be fair, lots of people died or disappeared. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, he didn't make it. He didn't make it.
Well, I'm sure if Rocket got his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet, he could get the arm.
Yeah, I don't know if I really had any major disappointments aside from I really wanted an introduction into some more cosmic characters or cosmic entities like I was talking about in my theory video. I was really hoping to see the embodiment of eternity or infinity or the living tribunal or some cosmic entity of some sort, or even seeing another cosmic character like Quasar, or the original Captain Marvel, somebody else that would have been great. Maybe they're saving some of these characters for the sequel. I mean, obviously we'll be getting Carol Danvers Captain Marvel in the sequel, but I'm a cosmic guy. All right? The cosmic end of the Marvel universe is my area. I like the Earthbound stuff and the street level stuff, but I've always been a big fan of the cosmic stuff. Nova, Quasar, Captain Universe. Love these characters. So whenever I'm watching a Marvel movie now where we could potentially see some of these characters in it, I get really excited.
I completely understand where you're coming from, but this movie was quite a balancing act, and I could appreciate the fact that they don't want to half-ass any of these characters. A lot of people were a little bit rubbed the wrong way that Death wasn't in the movie, and I could see why. You know what I mean?
Well, yes and sort of no. We didn't technically get the embodiment of Death, but we sort of got a awkward variation of Death in the Red Skull's cameo.
Definitely, but if we're talking about the actual one that Thanos, is in love with and everything like that, I think that would have complicated the story tremendously and taken away from the build, the character development that they were doing to, really get you to that point of sympathizing with Thanos' cause. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these characters, as much as we'd love to see them in this, they're gonna complicate the story a little bit because they have to go into explaining. Then you fall into the area of exposition or make the movie longer, and it's a tough balancing act. So I can understand where the temptation would be to put a lot of these characters in, but I'm glad they show restraint.
Well, they were actually setting up that particular little story arc back from the original Thanos cameo in the Avengers, where the character of the Other said basically he said to challenge Earth is to court death, and then that's when we first get our first look at Thanos, and he's smiling at the thought of courting death. So they actually set that story up, years ago. I guess they just thought, after the world that they built, that it wasn't going to work for them.
Yeah, and I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possible of happening, but, not this movie. So, I mean, we got to wait and see what happens. But, as much as I'd like to see more cosmic ones, I really think that they need to explore that universe a little bit more. And I don't think the cosmic stuff is going away with everything else that's happening, with Captain Marvel coming into the play, then bringing back Ronin, and Adam Warlock being birthed, or the inevitable birthing of him. So I think we're going to be heading in that territory, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Well, the thing is that after Thanos, moving forward in the phase 4, 5, however long this fucking universe goes for, apparently they have movies planned up to 2025, which is insanity. But after Thanos is defeated, you have to start thinking of, okay, who's another Thanos tier, Thanos level threat that would require the Avengers to assemble to fight off? Well, obviously Thanos is a top tier villain. Now, in terms of villains that rival Thanos' strength without the Infinity Gauntlet, there's only cosmic characters I can think of, aside from Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom would be the only other, Earth-level villain I could think of. But, you're going to start naming off characters like Galactus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say first.
Kang the Conqueror. He's up there with Thanos. Michael Korvac, who probably a lot of people aren't familiar with, but the Korvac saga is a pretty insane saga in the comics. Check that out. Michael Korvac is a crazy fucking villain. And then it would be stuff like, Skrulls, but we're getting the Skrulls in Captain Marvel. And then Annihilus. If we ever get Annihilation, that would be fucking a really cool movie arc to dive into. I suggest reading that comic arc, the Annihilation comic arc. It is fantastic. The Annihilus wave and all that good stuff. Read it. It is really good, and it sort of leads into the formation of the Guardians team. Everybody knows of now. So read that comic arc if you have not. The Annihilation wave. It's great story arc.
One thing about these villains that could rival Thanos, I think with the proper writing, you could pretty much take lesser B, D level characters and possibly build them up into something. We've all talked about previously how Iron Man wasn't a household name back in the day. Thor wasn't a household name. But they are basically the rock stars of this universe, and all it took was good writing. So I don't think that, or I do think that they could take villains that didn't really necessarily get their time to shine in comics and really build them into something with the proper care.
Well, obviously we got introduced and shown that Red Skull is indeed alive, and he has been granted some cosmic abilities of some sort.
Yeah, that surprised me. I honestly didn't think we were gonna. I heard there was some really out there surprises, I guess, but I never in a million years expected that.
And in the comics, Red Skull is very, very obsessed with cosmic supremacy and gaining more cosmic powers. And he has a lot. He's got quite a fascination with cosmic cubes in the comic. So if they ever introduce cosmic cubes, which I don't know if they will after the Tesseract, because I think people might get confused, but maybe something of a similar nature, he could end up becoming a big cosmic threat later if they wanted to reuse him at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see them rehashing too much. I think that was a nice cameo, but I in the Marvel universe, I don't doubt anything. I'm not surprised if something happens. You know, they've done it to us plenty of times. So
Well, so it's safe to say that from start to finish, this was a movie that did not disappoint on any level. I was happy to see that every character was really given their own time to shine, and this wasn't the Iron Man show like a lot of people thought it would be. Yes, Iron Man might have probably not even Iron Man did have more screen time, more dialogue than anybody else. But when I say that, I mean it in the most minimal way possible. If he had 5 minutes more screen time, that might be I might be overestimating there. This movie did a really good job of kind of letting each character have their moment in the sun.
yeah, I definitely agree there. I mean, just I can't express how great the writing was with this movie, and how they laid everything out. The development, you know, you never would have expected them to pull off what they did, how they did, but somehow they did.
So let's quickly discuss how this movie is doing. Now, when we say that, in this day and age, box office numbers mean everything. You have good box office numbers, your movie's good. Well, this movie has pretty much broken every record imaginable at the box office. Best opening ever. You know, I think the only record it didn't break was best Thursday night. Everything else, it has smashed. Absolutely Hulk smashed. And it is going to continue to. It is going to turn into, you know, World Breaker Hulk at this point and just absolutely rip shit apart. Um, as of this moment, this movie sits at, mind you, it opened 6 days ago, right? Technically 5 days ago because we're not counting the tonight's totals yet. So in 5 days, this movie has made 808 million worldwide.
That ain't nothing. That's ridiculous. That's what that is.
And it has crossed 300 million domestically. That's
Yeah.
that is that is like 70 million more domestically right now than Justice League made on its entire run.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to dive too much into DC versus Marvel, but that is still quite a feat.
But you know what? It's the comparison that's being made.
Oh, of course, of course.
You know, Justice League came out last year. That was DC's, you know, team up movie with characters that are arguably more popular and sort of more well known, at least they used to be, when compared to Marvel. But the difference is that one movie was done right, planned right, and spread out through 10 years of world building. And the other one was just like, fuck, where's the panic button? And then they pressed it until it broke, and we got Justice League. So, you know, and I've said this before on stream, I don't want the DC movies to be bad. Now, I'm not a DC fan, but I don't want these movies to be bad. Competition is good, all right? DC makes a good movie. Guess what? Marvel got to step up and make an even better movie. Competition is good for everybody. You don't want to be, like, looking over and seeing your competition fucking floundering, trying to, you know, trying to fucking get a Batman movie off the ground. I mean, fucking it doesn't take much to write a good Batman movie. I don't get it. Batman has an amazing list of his rogue gallery is insane. You don't need the Joker in a Batman movie to have a good Batman movie. All right, it's fucking spin a wheel and all right, we landed on doesn't matter who. It's gonna be a good villain, and all you need is a halfway competent writer who is familiar with enough source material to make fans happy, and you got a good movie. And what DC is putting out is just not, it's not up to par with what comic book fans now deserve after we've been spoiled so badly by Marvel. And it's just the way it is. I'm not trying to shit talk DC. Again, I'm not a DC fan, but I want to see these movies succeed so we keep getting better movies all around in the comic book movie genre.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm more of a Marvel fan, but at the same time, I'm big into certain characters for DC. And you, as DC fans, we shouldn't be just happy that we're seeing the characters on the big screen. You know, and that's what a lot of people are taking into consideration, or actually using as their crutch to defending these things, because you know they're sitting there saying, oh well, you know, at least we got it, at least we're seeing these characters realized. And you know, in the world of the MCU, that should not be enough. I mean, that shouldn't be acceptable. They need to care with the approach to doing this whole thing right, and then go through with it. Give us some good stuff.
Yeah, it's competition. Competition makes everybody better because they have to be better than their competition. When there is nothing to compete with, there's no supply and demand anymore. It's just like, well, we got the fucking monopoly. We just want to sit back on our laurels and, you know, make subpar entertainment. We're going to do it because you're not going to get this entertainment anywhere else. Magnum in chat right now brings up a fantastic fucking point, saying, look at wrestling. Wrestling has gotten a bit stale ever since WWE took out all the big competitors. And I would say WWE has had a couple of good spots here and there. They've had some good runs. But for the most part, I'd have to say that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I could see the whole comparison into DC / Warner Brothers, because they've rode out the wave, you know, when it comes to Batman. They keep going back to that well and hoping that it works. And the care levels are around the kind of levels that we got in the early 2000s, where they're like, oh, a superhero, put him on the screen. Who cares how it's written? It'll sell. You know, that's what these people like. And when you're in cruise control like that and not caring about anything because you have no reason to care, you know, what's the point of putting effort in? What's the point of hiring a decent enough writer to really realize these things, and instead of, you know, just Joe Schmo off the street? And I think that's the mentality that went into these movies when they started to try to copy the Marvel, you know, cinematic universe. When they're like, oh well, you know, they're doing well. People will go see superhero movies. They're going to do it anyway. So who cares how well it is? And it kind of shows. Well, not even kind of. It perfectly shows in Marvel. They'll never hit the level that they are on the current path that they're on.
Let me kind of put this into perspective. So, at the end of the day, these comic book movies, for the most part, the target audience are children. Now, a movie like Infinity War sort of kind of raises the bar a little bit. I'm not going to say it's not for children, but there's a lot more going on that children are not going to understand. And it's sort of maybe targeted towards children, but honestly, it's built for fans of the comics from when the comics were released originally back in the 90s and prior. And I'm talking about the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, those comic arcs. Those are from the 90s. All right. And I think what Marvel is really starting to realize now is that, like with Star Wars, that they have a very, very passionate, powerful, and large fan base in older adults. Now, I'm 31 years old, and I am a big comic fan. I've been a comic fan my whole life, been a Marvel fan my whole life. I grew up with this stuff, and again, as a functioning adult who wakes up at 5:30 every morning, goes to work, come home, I kiss my wife, I do the husband thing, and then I come down here on my computer. I'm sitting here and I do my geek stuff, right? And this stuff is important to me. Some people might call that sad. You're 31 years old and you're so caught up in comic book geek shit. But when you're a kid growing up with this stuff, it's super important to you, and that just doesn't go away. If anything, how important it is just gonna grow. And seeing the love and compassion that Marvel Studios and Disney, let's be honest here, Disney as well, is putting into these characters for fans like myself who have been fans of these characters their entire life, it's comforting. It's like you open your eyes and it's like, wow, finally it's our time. As comic book fans, when we were growing up, you kind of had to. It was like being a Dungeons and Dragons fan. You couldn't fucking tell people, Your ass would be running home after school. You couldn't tell people that, but now you open your eyes and you see everywhere. It's everywhere. We're safe now. It's our time now. All right. There's no more being ashamed. There's no more hiding it. If I had my fucking giant rocket raccoon plushie, I would take him out right now and give him a hug, but he's at the new house. But that's what Marvel has done. It has made it more than okay to be a comic book fan, and it's like not only that, it's like you want to be a comic book fan now just because of how great this universe is that they have built for us. And I feel like that they have built it for us, the fans who have been with them for as long as they've been alive, almost. I mean, I've been a massive supporter of Marvel since I was a small kid, waking up on Saturday mornings watching the Spider-Man animated show, the X-Men animated show. And I was even bigger fans of the Iron Man and the short-lived only one season Silver Surfer show.
I still need to check those out. To echo that, I might still have it actually, an original VHS of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was my introduction to the television universe. So
with Firestar,
Iceman, and Spider-Man.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it was good. I actually just got a bootleg of that not too long ago. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And to jump off of that really quick, people our age that grew up with this stuff, and are still passionate about it, they're having families. They have families. They want to pass on the torch to their kids and just kind of like show them what they experienced growing up. And that's the one thing that always bugs me, is that a lot of comic fans our age are territorial because we had to grow up in that sort of weird, you gotta put it in the closet or wear it out and get picked on. But I'm not bitter, you know what I mean? Like I'm glad that people are finally opening their eyes and realizing what they missed out over the last 20 years, 30 years. I'm grateful that people are finally understanding why my nose was buried in a comic book, or why I was creating my own storylines with action figures growing up. It's that point of, hey, like you understand where I was coming from. You understand the world I was escaping to, and now it's your time to escape and enjoy it. So I'm happy that so many people are finally seeing that.
The world is ours now. We are running it, and it's it's empowering. You, when I was growing up, when I first started going to conventions, when they were horror conventions, back 14, 15 years old, I couldn't really say that to any of my friends. It's like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to a convention. It, again, it was like one of those things you kind of had to hide. But now you're a fucking loser if you don't go to these conventions, if you're not a fan of this stuff. So, being a leg up on everybody from being a fan from the beginning, at least from the beginning from when I could have been a fan anyway. We didn't grow up in the golden age of comics or the silver age or anything. But it's now our time. We have nothing to be ashamed of anymore, and we have everything to celebrate. We're on top of the world as Marvel fans. And comic book fans in general, but specifically Marvel fans. We are on top of the world. It's everywhere now. It surrounds us and it's binding us. It is in our culture as we never thought it would be possible. When you're seeing, fucking movie promotion and marketing for Iron Man and Spider-Man and all these characters you grew up with, they're everywhere. Right? Fucking everywhere. You go to Times Square, that shit's fucking everywhere in Times Square. You're just like, you almost want to break down and cry because we've gotten to this point that we never thought we would ever get to. And now we're even further to that point where one of our movies has broken every possible fucking record. And I don't think people realize that Infinity War is going to end up hitting $1 billion probably in a week, maybe less. If they
it's quite a feat.
they're probably, they're pulling in 25 million a day on the weekdays right now. They're probably going to hit another 150 million this weekend, give or take. They're going to be at $1 billion by Monday, maybe. And China hasn't even opened yet. China doesn't open until May 11th. So
wow, I didn't even realize that. That's crazy.
So this is our time, guys. Revel in it. If you are a comic book fan, if you are a Marvel fan, this is it. We have reached the absolute top. We were at the top before, but it's just like, yeah, no, that top wasn't top enough for us. And we topped the top.
It's all very true, my friend. And to a small note, which I thought was pretty funny. Remember when our buddy Hairman decided to say that Star Wars was the top last week? You were like, it's an event film, yeah. And he goes, nope, Star Wars is the best, blah blah blah. And then they crushed Star Wars' record.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a big Star Wars fan too, man. I'm a Star Wars.
Oh yeah, me too.
And it's I had no doubt in my mind that this was going to be the movie event of our lifetime, and it did not disappoint on any level. We're gonna wrap up in a second, but I just kind of want us both to share our theater experience before we sort of start signing off. My theater was pretty packed. I was in reserve seats, recliner, big cushion seats, and most of the theater was sold out. But oddly enough, like my row, like a bunch of those people just never showed up for some reason. But the rest of the theater was absolutely packed. And I gotta say, I had a theater full of very thoughtful and great moviegoers. They were all fans. I didn't see anybody on their phone. I didn't hear anybody's phone. When a scene happened to be funny, people were fucking laughing. Nobody was shouting out dumb shit. When a scene was emotional, you could hear it in, the gasps and the awes and stuff. The entire theater was in sync, and you felt that everybody else was feeling because you were all watching the same thing. You were all connected to it. It was the best movie-going experience I've ever had. And that only made the movie so much better watching it with a great audience.
My theater experience was a little bit different. I have a theater up here that is a smaller chain to begin with, and it is kind of tucked behind a mini mall. Like it's in the mini mall, but it's basically in the far corner, all by itself. It's a relatively big parking lot, big theater, but every time I've been there, it's kind of dead, mostly dead. So I got in there. I decided, you know what? It's a Saturday afternoon. I need to get there on time. I need to get there early, or else I'm going to be sitting at the most ridiculous seat. So I got there a half hour before the movie. I was a little nervous that I wasn't getting there in enough time. I get to my theater, I go inside, and there is not a single soul in there. Like the small cleaning lady just came out, and everybody else, there was nobody there except for me. So I was like, oh wow, this is not good. I really hope like this. So long story short, the people started to show up. It wasn't that packed of a theater, so it wasn't that bad. I would say roughly 25 people, the max. Um, but the experience was very good. I really wish that I had more people like in the same vein as what Bates is saying. But the small groups of people that were in there, they kind of had their own vibe. They had a couple families with a lot of kids, which I was a little like nerve wracked about. But they listening to the kids react to the movie, like to some of the lesser, more kid oriented jokes, like they were cracking up over this movie. But you could also hear them react in a way that I didn't necessarily think that they would. Like some of the harder hitting moments in the movie, some of the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect the kid to react to, they were reacting just as the adults were, which I thought was really interesting. So, and the other thing that was kind of a little nerve wracking to me was there was like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 8 teenage girls come in there, and they're just talking on their phones and everything like that. And I'm right before the movie, I'm just like, oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be awful. They also got into the movie in the way that everybody else did. So like, it was an experience that pretty much capped any expectations that I had, and whether they were negative or positive. So the theater going, no problem. But like in that movie, you're kind of connected to everybody that's in the theater, but you're also dealing with it in your own way. So you're kind of like the single person just being affected by everything that's taking place simultaneously as everybody else is.
Yeah, having a good audience with you for a movie like this is key in my opinion for an event type movie like this. So I was very very happy with what I had, and as I said, I feel like it only made the movie even better.
Yeah, definitely. It was a blast overall.
Um, I was hoping to go see the movie again last night, but I decided to go out to dinner with the wifey because she had to go back to California this morning. So that was all right. Sorry about that. My OBS decided to just go fucking haywire on me.
Yeah, that's the first time that ever happened. Right as we're landing the show, it's like, hey, guess what? We're gonna complicate everything.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. All of a sudden, it just started dropping every single frame, and I've never had that happen on OBS. I mean, even when I've been fucking streaming games and what, I've never had that happen. So there's something on my computer that OBS doesn't like right now. Maybe moving forward, I will start doing a dual stream setup and streaming from my actual streaming computer for the podcast. But I don't even know what I was talking about before the stream crashed on me.
I think it was the theater going experience, how it's important and everything like that. And you were possibly going to see it a second time.
Oh, yes. So, so yeah, I'll hopefully be seeing it again next week. And I typically don't go to the movie to see a movie in the theaters more than once, unless it's a movie I really, really love. In the last couple years, there's only been a handful of them. Because going to the movies is fucking expensive, man. Let's not try to sugarcoat that. It is expensive, but I will be seeing this again. I'll go on Tuesday night where I can get half price tickets. I gotta find somebody else to come with me, but that's not hard. But yes, I will be seeing it again.
If you're bored Sunday, I'll be going some point Sunday. Up by me.
I don't know what I got going on Sunday.
I'll think about it. I'm like, I love seeing movies multiple times. In a movie like Avengers: Infinity War, I feel like it's required viewing. You have to. There's so much going on within the movie that the first time through, with the emotions and everything that's happening, you miss stuff, or you don't appreciate certain things because it's your first way through. You're basically kind of like figuring out the logistics of everything. And I think seeing it a second time at the very least is going to be a situation where you could just kind of sit back and relax. Everything, all the mysteries that you were trying to uncover the first time, they're already known. So now you could really appreciate the little nuances within the movie. So
yeah, it's definitely a different type of viewing experience when you're watching a movie like this for the second time. But I think we covered quite a bit here in the last hour and a half, and I think it's about time we go ahead and start wrapping up before OBS craps out on me again. So let's see. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it as always. Sorry we didn't cover any horror news, horror updates, anything horror related. Not that there was a whole lot going on in the last week. A handful of things, but nothing too major and nothing that couldn't wait another week to discuss. So thank you for hanging out with us while we, discussed everything Infinity War related. If you haven't, check out my review on deadentertainment.com. That is a spoiler-free review, but it really kind of captures how I really feel about the movie, which is very strongly. If you guys like what you heard tonight, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us over on Twitter at WayOfLifeNet. You can also follow me on Twitter personally at Bates_MotelMT, and then also at Ray Mungus to follow Mungus over here.
please do.
Right now, what we got in the works is I'll be starting to stream again on my channel. I took the last week off to spend with the wifey, but I'll be back probably starting tomorrow night. I'm gonna make some more changes to try to fix some more issues, but I should be back tomorrow night. And we are working on some fun stuff for deadentertainment.com. I personally am working on a month-long event that should be kicking off in a couple more days. So keep an eye out for that. It's something really, really fun, really special I'm working on. We also have a giveaway coming up on Dead Entertainment, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when it's starting, but it's happening this month. The details are going to be released for very soon. I gotta talk to Chris to figure out when, but we have a big giveaway coming, and I think you have one too. No?
Yeah, I'm going to wait until Dead Entertainment does theirs, and then I'll do mine together, and that way we can do a bit of a cross promotion.
Exactly. Don't get excited because I'm winning Bates's giveaway, but you know, it happens. You guys are gonna just get over it.
So yeah, so that's something fun to look forward to. It's got some shit you guys can win. And then I do believe we're trying to work on another live commentary for this month.
Yeah, I think we should discuss that right after we're off the air and try to figure out when we're gonna do it. We're at the start of the month. Let's make some plans.
All right, sounds good to me. I think I'll forego my shout-outs this week, and maybe next week I'll actually have them written down. I know I've been saying that for like 3 months now, but I'm going to do it eventually. It's going to get done. And then everybody will get their proper shout-outs. That way I don't forget anybody. So I will forego my shout-outs for the week. What do you got?
I've got none, and that's also borderline gimmick infringement. Then again, I'm stealing Jason Mantzoukas' gimmick stuff.
That you are. All right. Well, make sure you follow us on Twitter, guys, and hit that subscribe button if you like what you heard. We'll be back to our regular format next week. Horror news, horror geek discussions, all that fun shit we usually talk about. And yeah, I think that about does it. So thank you guys again. And hopefully we'll see you all next week. And remember,
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.